Um, Hi guys. Hope I'm talking loud enough. I don't really know why I'm making this. I saw another girl made one, and I don't know. Uh, I guess in case any of you are wondering or have been curious about my um, history with OCD and where I am at with it now. So yeah, I guess I will talk about it. Hopefully loud enough. I might re-record this on a nicer camera, but so, my OCD symptoms started when I was 12, and I'll read you the textbook definition of it. Obsessive-compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder characterized by intrusive thoughts that produce uneasiness, apprehension, fear, or worry, by repetitive behaviors aimed at reducing the anxiety, or by a combination of such obsessions and compulsions. Symptoms of the disorder include excessive washing, repeated checking, extreme hoarding, preoccupation with sexual, violent, or religious thoughts, relationship-related obsessions, aversion to numbers, and nervous rituals, etc. So, from the beginning, I never had like the typical OCD that people think of when someone says, hey, I have OCD. People assume it has to do with being scared of germs and washing your hands and everything. And while that's like a huge thing and it's really awful for those people, I feel like there's not enough light shed on the other types. And I think the other types, like the types I have, are somewhat more traumatic. So yeah, this is very like personal and embarrassing, and kind of can't believe I'm sharing this, but it might help someone else who might not know that they have OCD and that's why they're experiencing these things. Because when it started for me, I didn't know what it was. So I was 12, and yeah, this is a really awkward thing to say, but I started masturbating when I was 12. And like I didn't understand what it was really, and I did it once, and for some reason I had this idea in my head that it was wrong, like what I did, and I was in like 6th grade, and I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that I did this. And I woke up every day, it was all I could think about. I felt so guilty about it. And you know, most people who do that, it's like not a big deal. You know, no one really has that reaction. But so yeah, I would wake up and it would be the first thing in my head. I would think about it all day at school, and it was just like this thought, like just it's hard to explain, but it's like how thoughts kind of like recede back when you're able to think about other things. Like I couldn't think about anything else, and it was driving me insane. So I thought that maybe if I told my mom that I did it, that I would feel better. And so I told her, and she didn't realize that it was, OCD or anything. She just told me it was normal, etc., that I shouldn't feel bad about doing it. And it still bugged me, but eventually I got over it. I don't really remember how long it took, maybe like a year for me to stop obsessing about this. And so yeah, I didn't know it was a mental disorder. I just thought it was me being weird. I don't know. So some time passed, and in 7th grade, my next obsession started, and this one lasted for an extremely long time, and it made my life hell, basically, for years. I don't really remember how it started. Just one day I thought, what if I'm gay? And this is like a whole other separate OCD thing. Like, this is called HOCD, homosexual OCD, and it happens to a lot of people, but not a lot of people know about it. And it's basically you become extremely paranoid that you're gay, and it doesn't have anything to do with being homophobic or anything. It's just like this fear that you're like something that's like different, and you're afraid of being something that people will could ridicule you for. I don't really know how to explain it. So that started, and every time I saw a girl or something, like anything like that, my brain would just be like, oh, you're attracted to her, oh, you still have a crush on her, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and there was no basis for this at all. It just happened one day. And I basically became paranoid and obsessed, thinking I had a crush on my best friend at the time, who was a girl, and I had never thought about her that way. But then, every time I hung out with her, my brain was like, oh, you still have a crush on her, blah, blah, blah. And every time I saw a girl, I would have intrusive sexual thoughts about them, and it wasn't voluntary at all. And I would, people with HOCD do this too. They give themselves self-tests. I couldn't look at lingerie magazines. At least I would, and I would flip through and be like, okay, do I like looking at this? Am I attracted to this girl? Blah blah blah. Just obsessively thinking about it, and looking at every single girl I saw and thinking that I was in love with them, attracted to them, or what if I am? What if I'm gay? Blah blah blah. And it made me really, really depressed. And I even, once again, told my mom, I think I have a crush on a girl, and I didn't. I don't know, I thought that if I could say it, that I would stop thinking about it. So yeah, when I saw girls, I would get intrusive thoughts of them naked, or intrusive sexual thoughts about me and the girl, and I would think I had a crush on every girl I was around, and I would obsessively process through my brain do I feel this way when I hug them, blah blah blah. And it's so terrible, and consuming, and it's eventually it gets so intense that you just believe it. And so, and I still struggle with this now sometimes, even after I've been in love with a guy, completely in love with a guy and everything. I still think about it sometimes. But so that lasted from 7th grade to 10th grade, 9th grade, and I fell in love with a guy in 11th grade. So after that, I felt I stopped constantly thinking about it. And then around 7th and 8th grade as well, I became, this is another common thing, which is really personal and people can easily take it the wrong way, but I don't know if there's a name for it, but a lot of people with OCD have it, where you're paranoid that you are a pedophile. And this started around the same time the homosexual OCD started, and this is by far the worst. This has made me suicidal. I'll get into that later, but so one day I was around a kid and I kept having these intrusive thoughts like, oh, I could molest them right now, whatever. And it's like, it's not myself making the thoughts, like, consciously. It's like this, little background voice saying that. And I had no idea that it was, like, not me, and I was so terrified. I hated myself. And from that point on, like, whenever I was around kids, I would have intrusive sexual thoughts about them, like, intrusive images of them, um, sexually related images, which was just so awful and disgusting, and it made me feel like I was insane. And this was like probably the worst time in my life, and this is still a problem for me now. And so yeah, that's started around like 8th grade, 7th grade, and I'm on medication now, and I still get the images sometimes, and I try really hard to block it out and everything, but it's sometimes hard for me to be around kids because it triggers me, and yeah. And that's not something I tell to a lot of people because obviously I'm scared people will assume that I am a pedophile, and I'm not at all. And it's something I wasn't even able to talk to my therapist about because it's just like awful and humiliating, and it made me feel so sick. Like, it's like impossible to describe the loss of self-esteem I had after all this started. Like, I just felt like a freak, like my brain was broken. And even now, like, I'm basically like giving up on having children. Like, I'm like incapable really of being able to raise a child right now. As far as my mental state, obviously I don't want a kid right now because I'm 21 and I'm in school and everything, but I basically had to rule out the prospect of having children, which is something I used to really want. And so yeah, it's just really awful, and I had no idea that it was a mental disorder and not me. So it like completely tore me apart, and I still struggle with it. And that got better like around like junior, senior year of high school. I got a lot better. But then when I went to college, I moved to New York and I relapsed, and I go through these like OCD periods, like the first one I had and the HOCD, where I'll have like an episode for like a year or something like that, where I'm just completely depressed and I can't stop thinking about a certain thing. And in 2010, when I went to college, I had a relapse with that, and then I almost went into the hospital because I was so suicidal and I hated myself and I didn't want to deal with the thoughts anymore. And, yeah. I'm on medication now since that happened, and it's gotten a little better, and I try to dismiss the thoughts, but it's still really difficult sometimes. My anxiety is high. And other than these, like, major things, in high school, I used to have fear of killing my family members, or being responsible for the death of someone, like a random person or someone I know, it didn't matter. And if I was around knives or whatever, I would have images pop into my head of like stabbing my family. And if I was alone around like my cousins or something, my brain would be like, you want to kill them, whatever. Obviously I don't. And I would just have these images of doing it, and I had no idea what it was or that it wasn't me. And for a period of time I thought I was schizophrenic, which thank God I'm not, but yeah. And I also do rituals, nothing like specific, but sometimes I will have to touch things, like my brain will be like, if you don't touch this, your dad will die. And if I'm putting away clothes, excuse me, I have a lot of trouble picking hangers, even still, because there's like a huge choice of hangers to choose from, section of hangers to choose from, and my brain's like, pick this one, a random baby will die, so I put it back, and it's like, pick this one, you will die, blah blah blah. So it'll take me like 20 minutes to hang something up, and I try to tell myself that it's not rational, that I don't need to do it, and blah blah blah, but sometimes the anxiety is so strong that I can't push through it, but I try. What else? In high school, I used to have religious OCD. I was really scared I was going to go to hell, so I would have to like knock on my headboard a certain amount of times, till basically my brain would let me stop. Like, be like, unless you knock on the headboard right now, you're gonna go to hell. I would stay up all night doing this till I wanted to like rip my skin off. Like, so frustrated. And this is really strange, but I used to be scared that I would, when I was laying in bed at night, like trying to go to sleep, I would be scared that like the devil would show up in my room, or God, which I don't know why you'd be scared God would show up in your room. Yeah, so I would have to do rituals for that, and I remember one time I watched Butterfly Effect with my friend, and it freaked me out so much that I stayed up all night, like touching the chair over and over. So, yeah, that's basically my history with OCD, and I am doing better now, but it's still very present in my everyday life. Maybe not very present, but I still like sit back there, and I still occasionally have to do rituals. But since getting medication, I'm a lot better. But yeah, it's a daily struggle, and I just wanted to make this to share my story so you guys can know a little bit about me, and maybe can help someone, young person, or someone who has symptoms of OCD that aren't talked about and maybe thought that, it was them, like them thinking it and not a mental illness forcing them to think it, because that's really the worst part, because you hate yourself when really it's not you, and that's like the most important thing to remember. And so yeah, This is really, really long, and yeah. Thanks, guys. If you watch all of this, you're awesome.